I had just taken the red eye home for a quiet morning coffee with my wife when the president of our homeowners association decided to drop a Bluetooth speaker on my porch and fine me $500 for blasting music. What she didn't know was that my doorbell camera, and later, the police, would expose everything. And when they did, I planned to use it to take her whole scam down. It was 3:17 a.m. when someone reported my house for excessive noise. At 5:42 a.m., I was staring at a strip of bright orange duct tape stuck across my front door like a crime scene tag. My home at 2219 Ashwood Drive, in what was supposed to be the quiet suburb of Brookdale County, looked like it had been marked for eviction. I'm Ethan Collins, 58 years old, and I've spent 3 decades fixing other people's tech messes, a digital janitor, as I like to say. My entire career was about finding the one thing out of place. And this tape? Definitely out of place. The red eye from San Francisco had landed early, and all I wanted was my own bed and a cup of my wife Grace's coffee, black and strong enough to wake the dead. Instead, I found an envelope taped to the door, printed on fancy paper with final notice in swirly, self-important font. I hadn't even seen a first notice. Inside was a fine, $500 for a severe noise violation at 3:17 a.m. That made me laugh out loud. At that time, I was 30,000 feet over Nebraska on Flight 642. I had the boarding pass, the email, and the timestamps to prove it. Unless my snoring could travel through the stratosphere, this was a joke. Grace opened the door in her robe, calm as ever, holding a mug of coffee like a queen. "New decor," she said dryly, nodding at the orange tape. "Apparently, I hosted a rock concert while I was asleep over Nebraska." I replied. "Let me guess," she said, scanning the letter. Diana Marks. Diana Marks, our HOA president, was a woman who treated bylaws like scripture. She was obsessed with lawns, paint colors, and making sure everyone lived in her version of perfection. She'd find people for garbage cans left out a few minutes too long. Now she'd invented an entire violation out of thin air. "I've got proof," I told Grace, "and I'm going to find out what really happened." We sat down in my home office, my so-called command center. Surrounded by old computers and coiled cables, I logged into my security system. The timeline showed a motion alert at 3:05 a.m. I clicked it. Night vision lit up the screen. The front yard, calm and quiet, until a figure appeared from the shadows. Reflective stripes glinted off a tracksuit. Even in grainy green footage, I recognized the neat helmet of blonde hair. Diana Marks. She crouched near our porch bushes, set down something large and black, a Bluetooth speaker, and fiddled with her phone. The speaker blasted a burst of screeching heavy metal into the night. Then she turned and power walked away like a cartoon villain. "Would you look at that?" Grace murmured. "Cardio with a side of crime." I found another clip at 3:21 a.m. A police cruiser rolling up, lights flashing. The officer got out, looked around, then left. The music had stopped the moment he arrived. Diana had timed it perfectly. Premeditated, malicious, and incredibly stupid. The next morning, I walked straight over to her house. There she was, fussing with a sprinkler head on her pristine green lawn, wearing a pink blazer like she was running for office. "Morning, Diana," I said, holding up my phone. "You might want to see this." I pressed play. The footage of her planting the speaker filled the screen. Her face went pale. She froze like a deer in headlights. That's not me," she stammered. "That video's fake." I said nothing, just let it loop. She turned red, spun on her heel, and stormed into her house. I went straight to the Brookdale Police Department. Officer Ryan Miller, the same guy who'd responded that night, watched the footage with wide eyes. "Wait a minute," he said. "That was my call. I remember, it was dead quiet when I got there. I saw a speaker behind a bush, but figured it was kids. You were wearing your body cam, right?" I asked. "Always," he said. 2 hours later, he called back. "Body cam confirms it. No noise, no one home. You're cleared." Perfect. I had my proof, on 2 cameras. But Diana wasn't done. People like her never retreat, they escalate. The next afternoon, while I was out, she showed up at my door with 2 burly men in matching navy polos embroidered with the HOA logo. Grace answered the door, recording on her phone before the first word was said. "Grace," Diana began sweetly, "we're conducting a surprise compliance inspection." "For what?" "My houseplants." Grace said flatly. Diana puffed up. We received a report of unauthorized business activity in your garage. Grace raised an eyebrow. Really? Do you have a warrant? I don't need one, Diana snapped. I'm the HOA president. Grace didn't flinch. You're also the woman who trespassed on my property at 3 a.m. to plant evidence. No paper, no entry. And if you'd like to look your best for court, take 2 steps back. The lighting's better there. The 2 men shifted awkwardly. Diana sputtered something about community cooperation and fled. Grace's video caught every second. That made video number 2 in what I started calling the Diana files. At that point, it wasn't just about us. It was about everyone. We started visiting neighbors. The stories poured out. Mr. Harlan, a widower in his 80s, had been fined $50 because his garden hose wasn't coiled in a perfect circle. The Petersons, new parents, fined $100 because their stroller was visible when their garage door was open. Brenda Lewis, a single mom, $75 for her son's basketball hoop being an inch too close to the sidewalk. All small enough to make fighting them not worth it. But together, it was a racket. Then we met Frank Hill, an artist who refused to back down. His lawn featured a pink plastic flamingo that had earned him half a dozen fines. Instead of removing it, he surrounded it with ceramic gnomes arranged like a tiny courtroom, each one pointing at the flamingo. The sign read, "Guilty of being fabulous." That's when I realized this wasn't incompetence. It was a system, a pattern of extortion. I went digging. The HOA website listed monthly expenses. One line item jumped out, $2,000 a month to Brookdale Compliance Solutions, community enforcement, and consultation. A made-up name if I'd ever seen one. A search of the state business registry confirmed it. Brookdale Compliance Solutions, LLC, registered just over a year ago. The owner? Diana Marks. I called Grace's brother, Dan, a retired forensic accountant. If an HOA president is paying herself through a fake company, I asked, that's illegal, right? He laughed. Illegal? That's wire fraud, conflict of interest, and embezzlement. She's toast. Now I had motive, greed. Diana wasn't just power-hungry. She was stealing. We built a full case, timeline, footage, financial links. But before taking it public, we decided to have a little fun. Every morning at 8:15, Diana did her inspection walk. I reprogrammed our smart sprinklers. The next day, as she strutted by in her spotless white blazer, I hit the button on my phone. A high-pressure jet of water soaked her from the waist down. Grace took a sip of coffee and said, "Looks like a 100% chance of karma today." A few days later, Diana installed a security camera aimed straight at our house. That night, Grace and I set up a line of gnomes on our lawn, all pointing their tiny fingers at her camera. The front gnome held a sign, "We see you." Neighbors laughed. Diana didn't. The next day, she sent her enforcers, the same 2 men, to my door. "We're here to confiscate illegal surveillance equipment," one said. "On whose authority?" I asked. "HOA rules," he grunted. When he tried to push past me, instinct took over. I shoved back. A flower pot shattered. They grabbed at me, and for a tense few seconds, it was chaos, until Grace's voice cut through. "Smile for the camera, boys." She was recording everything. Sirens wailed in the distance. When Officer Miller arrived, he separated us, calm and firm. The 2 men were detained, and Miller took our footage as evidence. He knew exactly what was going on. That was the final straw. The annual HOA meeting was 2 days later. It was time for checkmate. The community center was packed, at least 60 neighbors buzzing with curiosity. Diana sat at the front in a blood-red suit, still acting untouchable. When the agenda reached new business, I stood. "I have a presentation for the community," I said. "This isn't on the agenda," she snapped. "Then add it under community welfare." People clapped. She had no choice. I dimmed the lights and started the slideshow. First, the night vision video, Diana planting the speaker. Gasps. Then the police report confirming silence at 3:21 a.m. Next, the payment trail. Fines HOA account Brookdale Compliance Solutions Diana Marks. The crowd erupted. Mr. Harlan shouted, "My hose paid for your wardrobe." Brenda added, "My kids' hoop funded your weekend getaway." Diana screamed, "It's fake. Slander." But then the next slide played, the porch fight with her hired muscle. That silenced the room. And then came the twist. The HOA treasurer, Arthur Bennett, stood up, pale and shaking, clutching a manila envelope. She made me sign the checks, he said. I copied everything. Inside were photocopies of cash checks, all signed by Diana, and ATM slips showing cash withdrawals right after fines cleared. Dates matched perfectly. The room exploded with anger. I call for a vote of no confidence, said Martha Klein, a quiet librarian from the board. Immediate removal. The response was unanimous. Aye. Right then, the back doors opened. Officer Miller and a detective walked in. Diana Marks, Miller said evenly. You're under investigation for fraud, harassment, and conspiracy. They escorted her out, not in cuffs, but with her head down, the room silent except for the sound of her heels clicking away. Then someone started to clap. Soon the whole room joined in. It wasn't for me. It was for all of us. The neighborhood had taken its power back. A few days later, the air on Ashwood Drive felt lighter. Kids played outside again. Mr. Harlan brought over fresh tomatoes. Brenda's son shot hoops freely. Frank added a new gnome to his display. Glasses, stubborn grin, holding a tiny painted receipt. Grace and I sat on our porch swing, listening to the crickets. It's peaceful, she said. Beautiful, I replied. She smiled. You know why crickets are lucky? Why? They chirp all night and never get fined for it. We laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. We had our home and our peace back.